The CEO of Anthropic just put AGI at 1 to 2 years on tape. Not 5, not by 2030, 1 to 2. Then he said something even crazier. Stay with me.
In these models, and why think that it's 1 year away and not 10 years away?
I actually think of it as like there's kind of two cases to be made here, or like two claims you could make, one of which is like stronger and the other of which is weaker. So I think starting with the weaker claim, when I first saw the scaling back in 2019, I wasn't sure. This was this was kind of a 50-50 thing, right? I thought I saw something that was, and my claim was this is much more likely than anyone thinks it is. Like, this is wild. No one else would even consider this. Maybe there's a 50% chance this happens. On the basic hypothesis of, as you put it, within 10 years, we'll get to, what I call kind of country of geniuses in a data center. I'm at like 90% on that. And it's hard to go much higher than 90% because the world is so unpredictable. Yeah. Maybe the irreducible uncertainty would be if we were at 95%, where you get to things like, I don't know, maybe multiple companies have, kind of internal turmoil and nothing happens, and then Taiwan gets invaded and like all the fabs get blown up by missiles and then
now you've changed the scenario.
Yeah. You could construct a scenario where there's like a 5% chance that you can construct a 5% world where like things get delayed for 10 years. That's maybe 5%. There's another 5%, which is that I'm very confident on tasks that can be verified.
In 2019, he was at 50%. Today, he is at 90%. That is not hype. That is a CEO updating his own probability in public with receipts. And the thing he is 90% confident about is what he calls a country of geniuses in a data center. Not smart AI, not ChatGPT, a country of geniuses, working 24 hours a day on whatever you point them at. The only thing he thinks could stop this is Taiwan being invaded and the chip fabs physically destroyed. That is how locked in he believes the trajectory is.
So you're predicting that within 1 to 3 years. And then generally, Anthropic has predicted that by late 26, early 27, we will have AI systems that are, quote, have the ability to navigate interfaces available to humans doing digital work today, intellectual capabilities matching or exceeding that of Nobel Prize winners, and the ability to interface with the physical world. And then you gave an interview 2 months ago with DealBook, where you were emphasizing your company's more responsible compute scaling as compared to your competitors. And I'm trying to square these two views where if you really believe that we're going to have a country of geniuses, you want as big a data center as you can get. There's no reason to slow down. The TAM of a Nobel Prize winner that is actually can do everything a Nobel Prize winner can do is like trillions of dollars. And so I'm trying to square this conservatism, which seems rational if you have more moderate timelines, with your stated views about AI progress.
Yeah, so it actually all fits together. And we go back to this fast, but not infinitely fast diffusion. So like, let's say that we're making progress at this rate. The technology is making progress this fast. Again, I have, very high conviction that like, it's going, we're going to get there within a few years. I have a hunch that we're going to get there within a year or two. So a little uncertainty on the technical side, but like, pretty strong confidence that it won't be off by much.
2 predictions in one breath. Anthropic officially expects AI systems by late 26 that can use any software, match Nobel Prize winners, and interface with the physical world. Then Dario goes off script. A year or two, he says it twice. By the time you finish your next car lease, machines do almost any cognitive job better than you can.
I could even stretch it to 5 years, although I'm skeptical of that. And so we have this uncertainty, which is even if the technology goes as fast as I suspect that it will, we don't know exactly how fast it's going to drive revenue. We know it's coming, but with the way you buy these data centers, if you're off by a couple years, that can be ruinous. It is just like how I wrote, in Machines of Loving Grace, I said, look, I think we might get this powerful AI, this country of genius in the data center. That description you gave comes from the Machines of Loving Grace. I said, we'll get that 2026, maybe 2027. Again, that is my hunch. Wouldn't be surprised if I'm off by a year or two, but like, that is my hunch. Let's say that happens. That's the starting gun. how long does it take to cure all the diseases, right? That's one of the ways that like drives a huge amount of economic value, right? Like you cure every disease. There's a question of how much of that goes to the pharmaceutical company, to the AI company, but there's an enormous consumer surplus because everyone, assuming we can get access for everyone, which I care about greatly, we cure all of these diseases. How long does it take? You have to do the biological discovery. You have to, manufacture the new drug. You have to, go through the regulatory process. I mean, we saw this with like vaccines and COVID, right? Like there's just this, we got the vaccine out to everyone, but it took a year and a half, right? And so my question is, how long does it take to get the cure for everything, which AI is the genius that can, in theory, invent, out to everyone? How long from when that AI first exists in the lab to when diseases have actually been cured for everyone?
He just admitted these data center bets are so big that being off by 2 years is ruinous. Anthropic might not exist if his timeline is wrong. CEOs don't say that on podcasts unless they believe it. Then he pivots. AGI is the starting gun, not the finish line. Even if it shows up tomorrow, the cure for cancer still has to be manufactured, regulated, distributed. We learned this with COVID. The vaccine existed in months. The rollout took a year and a half.
What is a vision for a world in which we have an equilibrium that is compatible with lots of different AIs, some of which are misaligned, running around?
Yeah. So I think, in the adolescence of technology, I was kind of, skeptical of like the balance of power. But I think I was particularly skeptical of, the thing I was specifically skeptical of is you have like 3 or 4 of these companies, like kind of all building models that are kind of derived, like derived from the same thing, and that these would check each other, or even that kind of any number of them would check each other. Like we might live in a offense dominant world where like one person or one AI model is like smart enough to do something that like causes damage for everything else. I think in the short run, we have a limited number of players now, so we can start by within the limited number of players, we kind of, we need to put in place the safeguards. We need to make sure everyone does the right alignment work. We need to make sure everyone has bioclassifiers. Like, those are kind of the immediate things we need to do. I agree that, that doesn't solve the problem in the long run, particularly if the ability of AI models to make other AI models proliferates, then, the whole thing can kind of, can become harder to solve. I think in the long run, we need some architecture of governance, right? Some architecture of governance that preserves human freedom, but kind of also allows us to like, govern the very large number of kind of, human systems, AI systems, hybrid human, hybrid human AI, like, companies or like economic units. So, we're going to need to think about like, how do we protect the world against, bioterrorism?
Dario just admitted his original safety theory broke. The old idea was that 3 or 4 major labs would check each other. He no longer believes that holds. If AI models can build other AI models, the surveillance breaks. Then he names what his replacement governance has to prevent. Bioterrorism, mirror life. If you don't know what mirror life is, it's a synthetic organism that could outcompete all natural life on Earth. He just put that on the same threat tier as bioterrorism. By 2027.
There's very few technologies that seem to be diffusing as fast as AI algorithmic progress. And so that does hint that this industry is sort of structurally diffusive.
So I think coding is going fast, but I think AI research is a superset of coding, and there are aspects of it that are not going fast. But I do think, again, once we get coding, once we get AI models going fast, then AI, that will speed up the ability of AI models to kind of do everything else. So I think while coding is going fast now, I think once the AI models are building the next AI models and building everything else, the whole economy will kind of go at the same pace. I am worried geographically, though. I'm a little worried that like just proximity to AI, having heard about AI, that may be one differentiator. And so when I said the 10 or 20% growth rate, a worry I have is that the growth rate could be like 50% in Silicon Valley and, parts of the world that are kind of socially connected to Silicon Valley and, not that much faster than its current pace elsewhere. And I think that'd be a pretty messed up world. So one of the things I think about a lot is how to prevent that.
Yeah. Do you think that once we have this country of geniuses as a data center, that robotics is sort of quickly solved afterwards? Because it seems like a big problem with robotics is that a human can learn how to teleoperate current hardware, but current AI models can't, at least not in a way that's super productive. And so if we have this ability to learn like a human, should it solve robotics immediately as well?
I don't think it's dependent on learning like a human. It could happen in different ways. Again, we could have trained the model on many different video games, which are like robotic controls, or many different simulated robotics environments, or just, train them to control computer screens and they learn to generalize. So it will happen. It's not necessarily dependent on human-like learning. Human-like learning is one way it could happen. If the model's like, oh, I pick up a robot, I didn't know how to use it, I learn. That could happen because we discovered discovering continual learning. That could also happen because we trained the model on a bunch of environments and then generalized, or it could happen because the model learns that in the context length. It doesn't actually matter which way. If we go back to the discussion we had like an hour ago, that type of thing can happen in several different ways.
Yeah.
But I do think when for whatever reason the models have those skills, then robotics will be revolutionized, both the design of robots, because the models will be much better than humans at that, and also the ability to kind of control robots. So we'll get better at building the physical hardware, building the physical robots, and we'll also get better at controlling it. Now, does that mean the robotics industry will also be generating trillions of dollars of revenue? My answer there is yes, but there will be the same extremely fast but not infinitely fast diffusion. So will robotics be revolutionized?
Two arguments back to back, and they close every escape hatch you might be using to feel safe. Geography first. He is worried the AI growth rate will be 50% in Silicon Valley and almost nothing in the rest of the world. His words, a pretty messed up world. Then robotics. People comfort themselves saying at least machines can't do physical work. He just closed that hatch. The country of geniuses solves robotics by playing video games and transferring the skill. They get better at designing the robots and controlling them. The trades are not the lifeboat people think they are.
They're most likely to miss.
I think a few things. One is, at every moment of this exponential, the extent to which the world outside it didn't understand it. This is a bias that's often present in history, where anything that actually happened looks inevitable in retrospect. And so, I think when people look back, it will be hard for them to put themselves in the place of people who were actually making a bet on this thing to happen that wasn't inevitable, that we had these arguments, like the arguments that, that I make for scaling, or that continual learning will be solved. Some of us internally in our heads put a high probability on this happening, but it's like there's a world outside us that's not acting on that's not kind of not acting on that at all. And I think the weirdness of it. I think unfortunately, like the insularity of it, like, if we're 1 year or 2 years away from it happening, like the average person on the street has no idea. And that's one of the things I'm trying to change, like with the memos, with talking to policymakers. But like, I don't know. I think that's just like a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Finally, I would say, and this probably applies to almost all historical moments of crisis, how absolutely fast it was happening, how everything was happening all at once. And so decisions that you might think, were kind of carefully calculated, well, actually you have to make that decision, and then you have to make 30 other decisions on the same day, because it's all happening so fast. And you don't even know which decisions are going to turn out to be consequential. So, one of my, I guess, worries, although it's also an insight into kind of what's happening, is that, some very critical decision will be will be some decision that, someone just comes into my office and is like, Dario, you have 2 minutes. Like, should we do thing A or thing B on this, like, someone gives me this random, half page memo and is like, should we do A or B? And I'm like, I don't know, I have to eat lunch. Let's do B.
2 lines. First, the average person on the street has no idea. Those are his exact words. The CEO of Anthropic just admitted his peers know and the rest of the world is asleep. You are the exception. You are early. Then the line that actually scares me. He says the most consequential decision he ever makes will probably happen in 2 minutes between bites of his lunch. The people steering this technology are humans, tired, hungry, pulled in 50 directions. One random half-page memo this year sets the trajectory of the next century. 90% confidence, 1 to 2 years, mirror life on the same tier as bioterror. The safety model broke. The average person has no idea. And the most important call of the century happens over a sandwich. The clock is ticking. What do you change about your life this month if he is right?